Professor Justin Lin was chief economist of World Bank for 4 years during the most troubling times in the world economy. He is also a highly distinguished economist on the world stage. He joined us today in Hong Kong to talk about the Chinese economy and its relations overseas. Professor Lin, welcome. And you always maintained that China can keep a very high growth rate of 8% over the next 20 years.
Well, I think China has the potential to grow at 8% in the coming 20 years. And the reason why China has the potential because China still has a large advantage of backwardness. That means latecomer countries in the process of economic upgrading structural transformation. They can learn from the developed country and to reduce the cost of innovation, to reduce the risk of innovation. The newest data I have for China was 2008. And in that year, the labor of China's economic development was the same as Japan in 1951, Singapore in 1967, Taiwan in 1975, and Korea in 1977. And on the same level of economic development, other East Asian economies that tap into the potential of advantage of backwardness in their process of industrial upgrading, technological innovation. And for Japan, it maintained 20 years or 9.2% growth rate. Singapore, 20 years, 8.6% growth rate. And Taiwan, 20 years of 8.3% growth rate. Korea, 20 years of 7.6% growth rate. We know that mainland China, after the reform in 1979, followed the same pattern of the economic development in the process of its industrial upgrading, technological innovation. And if the same potential allow Japan to realize 9.2% growth rate for 20 years, Singapore 20 years of 8.6%, Taiwan 20 years of 8.3% growth rate, Korea 20 years of 7.6%. Then I think there must be potential for China to have 20 years of 8% growth rate.
Are there any necessary reforms for China to implement it in order to realize its potential?
Certainly, that's a potential. And if you want to realize the potential, China needs to do many things. One thing is that they need to complete the transition from a planned economy to a well-functioning market economy. At the same time, the government needs to play the facilitation role in the process of industrial upgrading, technological innovation. Like any other developed country, their government also play their facilitation function in their industrial upgrading and technological innovation. So those are the two main areas that China needs to do in order to realize the potential.
How long will it take for renminbi to be truly internationalized?
That depends. That depends not only on this condition in China, but also the condition outside China. We know that currently, because of the slow down in their growth rate and high unemployment in the high-income countries, and in general, they adopt some kind of quantitative easing, very loose monetary policies. And those kind of government macro policy in high-income countries created all kind of short-term speculative funds. And with so many short-term speculative funds, every country need to have a way to prevent the inflow of hard money. And so even IMF used to be the champion of capital account liberalization. Now they also recommend a developing country, when they encounter a large inflow of short-term capitals, they should impose certain kind of capital control. And with that, China as a developing country, China also need to prevent a large inflow of those kind of short-term speculative capital. So how fast the total liberalization of China's capital account or the total comfortability of Chinese yuan very much depends on not only the policy in China, but also the policy outside China.
How would you see China's role in the world economy as the country's economy evolve?
Well, certainly that if China can maintain the economic growth, tap into those 8% growth potential, on the one hand, Chinese economy will become larger, but it will be a very important contribution to the global economy because currently the main challenge in the world is growth because the only way out for the trouble in a high-income country, no matter it's Eurozone, it's US, or in Japan, the most important thing is to have a strong demand outside their country. And to have a strong demand, you need to have a very robust growth. And so if China can maintain this kind of dynamic economic growth, it's important for the Chinese people to realize its aspiration to become a high-income country. But it will also make a contribution to the development and peace in the world.
Now, the U.S. elections are over. How do you see the Sino-U.S. relations going on?
If you look into the past 30 years, whenever there was an election, China became an issue. Because in general, politicians, when they encounter trouble domestically, they want to find a scapegoat. And China was an easy target because dynamic economic growth in China gave the impression that all the trouble in the U.S. was created by China. But if we look carefully, the growth in China or the economy in China is complementary to the economy in the U.S. The dynamic economic growth creates the condition for the U.S. to have more robust growth. And so it's a win-win for China and for the U.S. And so when a president was elected, after he is in office, he will be more realistic. And I hope that Obama will follow that pattern. And certainly we need to wait and see. But we do have some confidence based on the past experiences in the history. Because it's a reality. It's a truth. The growth in China helped create jobs in the U.S. The growth in China helped reduce the needs for social spending in the U.S. And the growth in China helped the economy in the U.S. to grow.
Do you worry about the deterioration of China-Japan economic and trade relations in light of what happened lately over the territory disputes?
China and Japan economies are also in complementary situation. The growth in China will help the growth in Japan because Japan exports mainly capital goods and the growth in China will require the capital goods. And Japan will be a beneficiary of China's growth. Not only so, Japan produces high-end luxurious goods, and China's growth will create more larger middle-income class, and they will import more of the consumption goods from Japan. And that is very important for Japan to get out of its lost decades. However, because the economy in Japan did not do well in the past 20 years, and some right-wing politicians, for their personal political gain, and put the Japanese people and the economy as a hostage, and causing all the trouble regarding the 钓鱼台 and so on. And I hope Japanese people will have the wisdom to see the truth and to see that growth in China is a solution for the trouble in Japan, and we come into a friendly trading relation as we used to have in the past.
Thank you very much, Professor Lin. Thank you very much for your time.